My name is Gage Averill. I'm the Provost and Vice President Academic at UBC Vancouver. And every year, as part of Congregation, we have a tradition of bestowing honorary doctorates, honorary degrees upon individuals who, in the opinion of the university community, have fit the criteria of excellence and eminence in their chosen field. Dr. Thomas Ming Chang is one of those individuals, and I invite him to step forward to receive his honorary degree. Mr. President and Vice Chancellor, Thomas Ming Chang is one of the world's most distinguished scientists in the field of artificial cells and organ research. His lifelong association with McGill University began as an undergraduate student when in 1957, I want you to keep that date in mind, he accomplished the remarkable feat of creating the world's first artificial blood cell. Working with materials, I know you're all, many of you living in dorms, working with materials such as perfume atomizers in his dormitory room, laboratory, he managed to create a permeable plastic sac that would carry hemoglobin almost as effectively as a natural blood cell, sparking a new and dynamic field of research and development. After completing his Doctor of Medicine, Master of Surgery, and PhD at McGill, he remained to become a professor of physiology, medicine, and biomedical engineering, and the director of the Artificial Cells and Organs Research Center. The many highlights of his research career include his discovery that enzymes carried by artificial cells could correct some metabolic disorders. Concurrently, he also developed charcoal-filled cells to treat drug poisoning, a technique now widely used. His later work on finding a safe blood substitute brought him to international prominence during the tainted blood tragedy of the 1980s. Over the course of a prolific career, he published over 500 scientific papers and 21 books. In recognizing him as a fellow, the Canadian Academy of Health Sciences noted that his original ideas were years ahead of the modern era of nanotechnology, regenerative medicine, gene therapy, stem cell therapy, and blood substitutes. Not surprisingly, he has been a recipient of numerous distinctions, including 3 nominations for a Nobel Prize, and his installation as an officer of the Order of Canada. Mr. President and Vice Chancellor, in recognition of his extraordinary contributions to medicine and biomedical engineering, I ask you to confer the degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa upon Thomas Ming Chang.
By authority of the Senate of this great university, I confer upon you, Thomas Ming Chang, the title and degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa.
It gives me great pleasure now to ask Dr. Chang to say a few words. Dr. Chang.
Thank you. Honorable President of UBC, Dean of Medicine, all the distinguished faculty of UBC, graduating class of 2023, and their family and friends, and all other distinguished visitors. It's a pleasure to be here at UBC. It's such a large campus, it's just like a city. So, okay, so excuse me for, okay, I got everything now. I'd like to start first, if you don't mind, by first congratulating UBC. Why? Well, when I came to Canada in 1953, I bet you most of you are not born yet, UBC didn't even have a medical school yet, and it was known as McGill of the West. It's amazing that within such a short time, UBC is now 3 of the top universities of Canada, and it's now stand on top without being called anymore as McGill of the West. So my congratulations. And all of you contribute to it, the staff and the graduating class, because from now on, you bear on your shoulder the reputation of UBC, and the future of UBC is on also your shoulder. And I'm happy to say that McGill has a long connection with UBC. Your previous president of UBC graduated from McGill, and he even took a course that I gave on artificial cell at McGill. And your previous 2 deans earlier was also from McGill, Professor John Dirt and Professor David Bate. I know them quite well. So congratulations to all of you again for all your miracle and accomplishment. Now I'm asked to say a few words to the graduating class. But first, I must say I'm very honored and humbled to be given the honorary degree of Doctor of Science from the prestigious UBC, and they asked me to say a few words to the graduating class. Now, I remember very well something. The young people nowadays are very knowledgeable, very mature. They don't want people to give them suggestions. They don't want me to say, I'll tell you, you should do this and do that. It would be disastrous if I do that. I know, because I have my children, I have my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, and I learned quite early that that's the last thing I should do, especially from me to a class like you. So instead of doing this, I'm going to say something that my pediatrician, not my pediatrician, my family physician told me at one time. So I'm not telling you, I'm saying what other people told me. He said that life is just like sitting on a stool. It's important to have 4 straight legs. If you miss one or 2 legs, you fall down quite easily from life or have a very unstable life. So he told me that these are 1, your work, 2, your family, 3, your belief, your religion, 4, your health, like exercise, mental health, physical health. So I would just leave this here, except maybe I'll go into a little bit detail for my experience. Okay. Research your work, number 1. You can't decide right away, even right now, when you have so much to decide and choose from, such a long future. Like myself, at the beginning, I thought I was going to be a Christian physician to take care of the sick and the poor. But at the same time, I have a hobby. I like to think of new way of doing things, like invention. When I was in primary school, I thought that if the plane has trouble, the planes are getting bigger and bigger, the airport are getting smaller and smaller for the plane. So I told people, why don't they put a parachute behind the plane and open it when you land so you don't need a big airport? You know what happened? People laughed at me, thought I was crazy. So I learned very well that I shouldn't tell people what I think, so I keep it in my mind. So I studied hard to be a medical doctor. At the same time, I have my hobby, thinking about things. That's how I ended up doing artificial cell. I was doing the same thing, didn't tell people, but then I have a big mouth. I told my friend that I'm going to work on artificial cell, and people thought that I'm a bit off. Okay. So I went back to my dormitory, in my dormitory room, like the president said, and fool around. And beginner's luck, I got something. So I went to a young professor, Professor Burgeon, told him about it, and he's very forward-looking. He said, good, you can do it in the lab. So he set up a lab for me. Now, he's a very bright person. He ended up going to England to become their president of Medical Research Council. So I'm lucky to meet these type of people. Now, I never thought you can do this type of discovery as a career. I thought it's only a hobby. But as time goes on, I found that people are doing research on this type of invention, innovation. So I thought, hey, maybe I should give it a try. And it went, as I said, beginner's luck, quite promisingly, and even Science published my article when I was a student. So I thought, well, maybe I could do research. Well, after all, I like this type of thing. But to fulfill my aim as a Christian doctor, I become a Christian researcher. What is it? Well, I publish everything for everyone to do. I don't keep it for myself. I organize journals, meetings to encourage people to work in this area. So as a result, it's now being used around the world and very effectively. But I'm still very poor. I'm still a poor professor because I don't keep the secret. Okay, so now the other thing is your family. Okay? Now, I'm a bit old-fashioned, so I went up with many girls to find out who's best for a spouse based on her interest, whether she can stand me, and what I plan to do in the future, and not being rich, and whether she's good for my children. And it took me a long time. I went through knowing many girlfriends, and I was called, and they called me a playboy, but I'm not a But my granddaughter smiled at me and said, granddad, you are a playboy. But to tell you the truth, I found my wife, Lancy, and she is in fact my biggest supporter, and everything, my degree, should be half hers. And all my thing is half hers. Okay, now. And I think it's important to have some belief and some religion. You see, I'm a Chinese background. In China, you don't believe that you can only have one religion. But I was brought up to be a Christian. I went to a Christian school, so I believe in Christianity. At the same time, I feel that there are so many religions in the world. All religions teach you to be good, so I don't believe that should be just one Christian. I make the mistake of telling this to my wife's minister, a Christian. And he went and told my wife's sister, that don't let her marry this guy. He's not a Christian, he's a Buddhist. But I can guarantee you, I'm a very devout Christian, except I believe that all religions are as important as another. Now, lastly, your health is also very important. Starting from very young, I do weight training. I was skinny, and I saw the advertisement of people kicking sand on your face. And I took up child athletics, and I took up wrestling, weightlifting, and martial art. And at McGill, I even joined the intercollegiate wrestling team. But everything come together, all the four legs, because my wife liked to play tennis. I hate tennis, hitting the ball like this. But I gave up wrestling, gave up other things, and I helped her to play tennis. And she has talent. Very shortly, she became the top player in the club. She beat everybody except the coach. And she played with me, and I can barely manage. But we keep in good health until, this is important, pandemic. Everything stopped, no tennis, not even badminton. And I spend my time writing books and on the computer and directing different things. Very important. After 2.5 years, a doctor should have known, but I don't know, didn't know. I thought I would be very good health. But the trouble is that if you don't use your muscle, if you just do weight training, you can develop your red muscle. But the trouble is your white muscle is your endurance muscle. 2.5 years, no running around, tennis, badminton, you have atrophy. And I can barely walk long distance now. So please remember, keep in good shape so allow you to do all the future promising work you are planning. So in closing, congratulations to the whole 2023 graduating class. You have a good future in front of you, and best wishes for you.